Welcome everyone to Divorcing During a Crisis. So happy to have so many of you here. We're here with our lovely special guest, Joan Coullahan, who's going to walk us through the steps that some folks should go to if they're considering divorce, certainly friends of yours that are in that place. This is a great opportunity to just learn something and bring it back. The stability that can come through even a crisis type event. We're all experiencing our own crisis here during the pandemic, which is really tough. And it's tough on couples that are doing well. It's tough on couples with kids, but it's also extremely tough on couples that aren't doing as well. It may be pushing them over the edge. And when you're over the edge, you get very passionate, you get very heated. It becomes something much, much bigger than you ever wanted it to become. And so having someone like Joan, who's an expert, who's used to working through these relationships as we really dive through the tough parts of our life, it's a big help. Our expectation here is everyone's on here to learn something. It doesn't mean there's something going on with your relationship, but you're here to learn. This is the kind of service that my firm, Jason Howell Company, doesn't provide directly, but what we do directly with any of our clients and as a resource to anyone in our network is provide opportunities to meet other folks who may need to get some assistance with a professional that has an expertise that we don't. And so this is one of a handful of Zoominars that we have scheduled over the next few weeks with experts who know a lot more about a subject than we do as general financial planners. And we want to, use this time that we're all sort of stuck in the house to continue to learn something, right? All right, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass the mic over to Joan just to say hello. And then when we get started officially, I will share my screen and share the screen with our very, very small PowerPoint for today. Joan, before you go on, I'll just say about Joan before she starts, she is an expert, number one, because she knows more about a lot of these things than most people do. That makes you an expert. If you know more about something than most people do, you're considered an expert in life. Number two, though, she's actually worked as a professional in her business and in her career and in her expertise for over 20 years. There's a long list of certifications that she's earned over these years. There's a long list of partners, especially attorneys that she's worked with over all these years to not only learn the financial side, but also the legal side of some of what she has to do to help navigate for the people that are in a very tough position. So we're happy to have Joan. She's one of 10 people really in the country who have this kind of expertise. So Joan, please say hello.
Hi. Thank you, Jason. It's great to see everybody. It's great that you are participating. And I'm just happy to share whatever I have. This is a really horribly tough time. Even in the best of relationships, unfortunately, being stuck with someone that you've been thinking that you may want to untangle with, whether it's a partner, a spouse, or whatever, it makes it worse in this kind of an atmosphere where you have to be with them all the time, and all the time, more and more, you're realizing this is just not going to work out. So how do I get myself out of it? Or how do we get ourselves out of it the smartest way with the least amount of emotional and financial cost? So I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Jason.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you, Joan. All right, and with that, we're about 6 minutes past the hour. I think everyone who was in the waiting room is out of the waiting room. I'm not looking at the screen because I'm looking for an opportunity to email everyone or send a message to everyone. And that message is going to be, if you have questions, just put them here in the chat. And with that, I will now go to share my screen with the, as I mentioned before, the very simplified version of the PowerPoint that'll help guide us in our conversation. And so here we go. So here's our home screen here. Here are the pictures that you saw when you registered for this event. Thank all of you for being here. There's a little over 12 people here with us right now, so we'll all learn a little bit together. I always like to begin with the end in mind. This is Joan's contact information. So if you have a question that you aren't comfortable asking in an open forum, even in a chat, or you just think of something later, which happens a lot when we sit with experts, experts that typically are paid a lot of money, and then we walk out the door, realize, oh my gosh, I forgot to ask the question. This happens in the doctor's office all the time. Now you can do that. Here is her email address. Here is her phone number. If you need to reach Joan, you can do that. And if I can get my screen to work. Here, of course, is my contact information that I've just moved off the screen as I tried to move what might be the window of all of your faces off here. So many of you know, you should all know, my name is Jason Howell. I'm principal at Jason Howell Company, a wealth management firm for families. And what we try to do is share the joy of financial planning. We see financial planning as really the ticket to achieving your best life. We see opportunities to do that throughout your life. So one of our specialties is in fact family governance, where we can avoid some of the conversations and really the fights and battles around money that come up that typically can lead to some marital strife, as it were. Our family governance sort of practice has interviews with each of the principals, so both spouses, where we have conversations with them independently. We then bring their stories together, and that's what we're doing when we're asking these questions. We're asking them stories about their past lives with finances, about their current lives with finances, and their aspirations with finances. And these are all words, these are not numbers. We go through that, we do a write-up on each of their stories, we identify what could be the family mission statement around their values when it comes to money, and then from there, we also document something called a family constitution, kind of the rules of the road about how you're going to navigate financial life within your family. And that can be between you as a couple, and then also inclusive of some of your kids, and even part of your external families, parents, siblings, and the like. And of course, we do all the traditional financial planning techniques where we go through taxes and investments and retirement planning and college planning and all of that. But I think what makes our firm different is our focus on the family and how you're actually going to work through these challenges day to day. And to that end, we work with experts outside of our practice, including people like Joan Coullahan. So without further ado, here is Joan Coullahan. Here is the few bullet points she has here to share with you and share with us. And we'll let Joan go with her presentation for a few minutes. And I will look at the chat and see if there are any questions that come up and make sure that she gets to answer them in the time that we have today. Joan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, as I said, this is a tough time. No one, except if you were alive in 1918, has gone through this. And I know personally that if you're in a very challenging situation, it's very frustrating, it's very emotionally draining, and you have to get out of that mindset that you're trapped. And the best way to get out of that mindset is to take action. Many people have never been divorced before. They don't know what to expect. They think they have to go to court, and that's very rare. And there are many ways to divorce besides fighting it out with attorneys. I found through 24 years that the best thing to do is to be prepared. Truthfully, no professional in the divorce field wants to meet with people unless they are prepared. It's a waste of time on both the professional and the client, and it's a waste of money for the client. And it's very frustrating to go into a meeting not knowing what you should have focused on for preparation, and to leave and have really received no nuggets of knowledge, very few, nothing written down, nothing that that helps you move forward, and that's doubly frustrating. So when Jason asked me if I wanted to help people out by participating in this Zoominar, I said, heck yes, because I don't like to be stuck. And if I can help you not be stuck and relieve some of that anxiety, the worst thing in divorce is the anxiety of the unknown. So if you can take control and empower yourself, especially during a crisis, you're going to be so much better off by doing that. So when he asked me, I said, heck yes, let me share some knowledge with people. Let them know what is important, what they can do now that's very simple, very easy, that is going to pay huge dividends if they decide to separate and divorce. So there are three main things right now that you can do. And I realize that there are people on this call who may not be divorcing, but they have a friend, a family member, or whatever. So anyone that you know that is thinking about or going through the process, this is what I recommend. Number one, we have to know where you are, okay, in many respects. Believe it or not, almost no one has problems with parenting agreements. It's the money that is where the problems are usually. So the very first thing I want to know is, what debts do you have? And the easiest way that you can find that out, the debts that you yourself are responsible for, the easiest way to do that is to pull your credit report. If you have not pulled your entitled credit report, your free credit report, you can go to www.annualcreditreport.com. There's no one going to sell you anything. You don't have to give a credit card, and you can actually order the credit reports from all three agencies, because there's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You can print them out, and you can get them right there. The reason we need this is because we need to know, when you're divorcing, what are you going to be responsible for? We'd love to know what your spouse is responsible for too, but it is against the law to pull someone's credit report without authorization. And it certainly wouldn't be used in a court because it would be illegally obtained. So we want to know, what are the debts in your name now? Now, as a little aside, I will tell you this. There are basically two types of assets and debts in divorce. There are marital assets and debts, and those usually accrue between the date of marriage and the date of separation. And yes, you can be living separate in the same residence, and if you are observing all of the activities of being separate, which is no sleeping and no sex and no eating together, and you don't do each other's laundry and go out together, and that's a legal issue that you would need a legal opinion on. But as far as the credit report, you really need to know what your marital debts are that you could be responsible for. In the credit report, it will tell you whether it's an individual account, which means it's in your name only, and the credit agency, the company that you signed up, whether it would be with Visa or Home Depot or whatever, they just care that if you don't pay that debt, they're coming after you and no one else. If you're an authorized user, which you will find that, and it was stated on your credit report, then you have no repayment responsibility to the company, okay? That doesn't mean that it's not a debt that you have responsibility for during the divorce proceedings. So we need to make clear that the very first thing you do is you find out where are you right now, finding out what debts are on your credit report is the starting point. And then we say, is this a marital debt? Is this a separate debt? So if you've been thinking that you're going to get a divorce and your spouse goes to Neiman Marcus before they started bankruptcy and spent $10,000 on themselves, most likely you're not going to be responsible for that. Okay, so please visit annualcreditreport.com, pull one of each, and you can only do it once a year. And this way you don't have to sign up for credit reporting, credit tracking, or anything like that unless you actually want to. This won't give you your FICO scores, but this will give you what the credit reporting agencies say that you are responsible for if there are balances on any of these debts. The second part, you can't plan a new life till you know what your life is now. And that is tracking your expenses. And I actually have a very simple Excel spreadsheet that it's pretty comprehensive. It's more comprehensive actually than attorneys use with the area courts. And it breaks it down into household expenses, your personal expenses, the children's expenses. And if I had a couple more hours, I would tell you why that you want it broken out into that way. But I'd be glad to, if you just email me and say, send me your expense form, I'll just email and send it right back to you. But what you need to know is, what is it taking you to live? Now, this is crucial if you are part-time, if you're a stay-at-home mom or dad, it's very crucial. Or if you are going to be leaving the marital home, selling it, being bought out or whatever, you need to know what you can afford going forward. But this is crucial for spousal support. And in spousal support, there are two issues of spousal. Number one spouse has to have the ability to pay, but the other spouse has to show the need. And the expenses are where you're going to show the need. I have a case right now where we're doing this through family law software and tracking the income and the expenses and creating scenarios because she is thinking of going back to California. She's done the research on housing prices. We're talking about spousal support, and this is how it ties it together. So just beyond divorce, even though, it's a great idea to know where you're spending your money every month and what it really is going to take you to live. And then the third, and I have a very simple Excel spreadsheet for this too, list your assets and debts. And I don't really care about your 10-year-old sofa. I don't care even if it's Henredon or Roche Bobois, okay? But I do care about... Oh, yeah. It's a high-end furniture manufacturer. But anyway, make a list of your assets and debts, and rental properties, your marital home, checking, savings, investments outside of retirement, but also 401ks, deferred compensation, and defined benefit pensions. And of course, defined benefit pensions are military, civil service, agencies, some of them like FINRA, still have these pensions, and they will pay you a certain amount of money at retirement for the rest of your life. And they're extremely, extremely valuable. So if you want the spreadsheet, I will be glad to send it to you. Now, I know this is a lot that I'm probably making your head spin, and you're saying, okay, well, I can pull my credit report, but this other stuff, trust me, please trust me, this will save you so many hours of frustration, so much money, and you'll be able to make a lot better decisions. Besides, if you consult with an attorney and you can walk in and go, here it is, they are going to be delighted with you as a client, a mediator, or whoever you're going to use, because you've done the legwork, and that's basically the most important in the divorce process. Jason.
Thank you, Joan. That was great. It was high and tight. What I want to clarify for everyone here is, Joan's a unique person in the sort of panorama of people that you would look for should a friend of yours or someone be in this situation. Most people know when they're thinking about divorce, go run to an attorney. They don't necessarily know, and it's not on TV, to say maybe I need to go talk to a certified divorce financial expert like Joan. And the CDFA is a designation that you might see some financial advisors have, maybe even some attorneys have, but really you're hoping to have someone who not only has a designation, but really does this a lot of the time. Whenever you're thinking about a potential court proceeding, it's experience that's going to trump education in a lot of ways. And here with Joan, you've got someone who's got both, which is really interesting. I want to highlight an example, Joan, and maybe you can comment on this. About 3 years ago, a friend of mine who was about to turn, I think she was in her mid-50s. Her husband was also in her mid-50s. She was professional. She actually was a professor. Her husband was with one of the large firms, was a partner. And for 30 years, they had been married. They had almost adult children. I guess almost adult, they were college age, so we'll call them quasi-adult children. And here for the first time, she was ready to actually get divorced from this gentleman. And it was tough for her because, number one, she went to go find an attorney. That was really difficult. When she found one, he said, all right, well, here's my retainer fee. You just need to write me a check. Even though she was an accounting professor, she didn't have a checkbook. She didn't have her own bank account. And so that put her in a really crazy box. Mm-hmm. Number two, the attorney was about $400 an hour. How does that compare with, instead of going to an attorney first in her situation, maybe coming to someone like you?
Wow. Because what I help people do is the hardest part. Getting prepared, getting organized, getting focused and educated. That is the most difficult. The attorney does have a process for getting statements of the assets and debts and the expenses and everything, and it's called discovery. And there are 3 parts of discovery, and it costs an average of $8,000 to $10,000 per person just to go through that just to go through that process. When if you gathered things right now, and trust me, I have clients that their spouse goes, no, I'm not going to give you the tax returns. And of course, my client freaks out and calls me, and I go, okay, go to the IRS website. You signed them. Your Social Security number is on them. You have a right to them. And if you just want a transcript, and so we find out how much money your adjusted gross income was, Heck, you can order a transcript right off of the IRS site. So, and you don't want to have subpoenas and yeah. So basically an attorney will, and it takes a long time, will go through that discovery process. Whereas right now, by doing these three things, you've really gone through a lot of that discovery process yourself.
And Joan, tell all of us, I guess, a little bit about that idea of, working with someone on this level. You mentioned all the time it would take with an attorney. Compare an hourly rate from either someone like you, or obviously if the person does it themselves, it's zero, versus the hourly rate they would pay an attorney for essentially administrative details.
Well, first of all, I make my clients work, okay? I make my clients basically, if they are capable, and almost all of them are capable at least of some of this preparation, but I put it on the client. If, download statements, go through all the documents you have in the basement, pull out all of these documents that have anything to do with buying the house or retirement or whatever, because that's a fabulous starting point. So before I even usually start working with clients, they're already doing this because it saves them a lot of time and money. As far as I'm concerned, I am $380 an hour. I limit my time with my clients. I have a lot of tracing the gains and losses on a 401k you might have had before marriage. My assistants do a lot of my prep work, so I'm really limited to the high level tasks that we do, the jobs that we do. And usually people will pay, it depends on what your needs are, $2,000 to $3,000. That's for family law software, the reports to show the need for spousal support, taxation, list of assets, spousal support, and child support calculations, all of that. So it definitely does pay to do as much yourself as possible, because you don't want to have an attorney do that for you.
And when we were talking before this webinar in preparation, and I apologize if you're hearing any echoes from me, but I remember you saying that what you do for your clients is you kind of sit them down figuratively and say, this is what you can do right now to save time, to save anxiety, and to save money, right?
Yes.
So in this crisis situation, it seems like you're sort of clearing the pile away and helping them focus. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So first of all, I have to know what your needs are. So I will schedule half an hour to 45 minutes, no charge or obligation, Zoominar, or if you don't want to look at my gorgeous face.
It's a pretty gorgeous face, though. Why wouldn't they want to look at it?
A phone call, because I really need to dig in and learn what your situation is, because you may need something else first that is crucial for a starting point. But so I really have to find out where you are so that I can find out where you're probably going to wind up and where you're going to be. I do recommend all of my clients consult an attorney. Now, that doesn't mean give them 10 or 20 grand. No, that means that I work with family law attorneys. These are not, Jason, about 5 years ago, I had a client and she hooked up with an animal rights attorney. It did not have a happy ending. So wow. I work with family law attorneys that this is what they do, and they will let you buy a consultation. Most of them give like a half an hour free during the first part of a meeting, and then if you go another half an hour or an hour, you only pay for that. So this is really, really crucial. And you do want to conserve your assets, which means, spend as little as possible and to do as much if you're able to do that.
Got that. And I'm gonna stop the share here. Well, I won't stop the share yet. I just want to pick up on a couple of things you mentioned. Number one, you're willing to do a 30-minute consult with people as they're kind of figuring out where they are. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I have to.
And
I
that's
mean,
free
I
of
have
charge.
to, because wonder if you don't need me. And I do have that, and I'm happy to do that and point people in the right direction, and hey, there you go. So yes, I have to find out where you are.
And here is the contact information for Joan in that regard. The second thing I heard you say is that the kind of attorney matters. Okay, right?
Oh yeah.
And so the kind of attorney you're looking to work with is a family law attorney.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You wouldn't go for brain surgery to a podiatrist. So there you go.
There you go. So that's the kind. It's odd. It's called family law, but you're potentially getting a divorce. So it seems opposite, but I guess it sounds better. It's maybe why people sell life insurance instead of death insurance, right? It sounds nicer.
Sounds better.
It does. And then that's the other thing you said, is that most family law attorneys that you work with will offer a 30-minute consult free as well.
Yes, actually, I've known an attorney in Sterling, Virginia, for 18 to 20 years, and she actually will sit down and meet and for an hour to an hour and a half, and she won't charge for that because she has to know what's going on too.
And so this is a relief. I mean, for some of us who are on this webinar, who may have friends, who may have clients that are going through the machinations right now and really don't know what their situation is. I mean, probably their first step would be to go see a family counselor, right? But if they're past that point of no return, there's still an opportunity to speak with the principals that they would be involved with. Now they're learning that someone like you could have an initial conversation. You may put them to work for a bit before you even let them come back to you, right? All right, so always you put them to work. And it sounds like that might be the order of things, right? You go see your family counselor, talk to your parents, talk to their parents, try to work it out amongst yourselves. If that's just not happening, and you both have gotten to this point, then see you, speak to you for a while, get some homework. You haven't paid anything yet. Do your homework, come back to you, and then maybe now the clock starts running. But first it starts running with maybe some of your lower level staff, or I should just say lower billing staff for the most part. And then you might be the one to give the thumbs up to say, all right, now go talk with a family law attorney, which you could interview a few of them, right, essentially for free, and find your comfort level if it comes to that, if that's part of where the journey takes that couple, and really sort of do this in an organized way, in a less frantic way than maybe some people might have anticipated.
True. And one last thing, I work with probably at least a third of the time I work with couples. A lot of people want to go to mediation because both of them can go. When you have retained an attorney, that attorney has to be an advocate for their client. They really will not see you and your spouse. That doesn't mean they're trying to gum up the negotiating process or whatever. It's just by law, that's exactly how they have to practice. So I really always advocate, if possible, try to go through and try to do a lot of the prep work with your spouse. I know that this may not be possible, but if it is, it really, there are a lot of people that get along, believe it or not, there are people that get along better after the divorce than before the divorce. They parent better, and that's one of the main reasons that I try to take away the financial stress, is that it helps people make better decisions for the family.
So is there an opportunity to come see you as a couple? If you're having an amicable divorce, you're consciously uncoupling, could they come to see you and say, hey, Joan, we would like to figure out the numbers, and before we go see attorneys, because it would be plural, but we want to understand our numbers, understand what we should be looking at, and do this in a judicious way and potentially a fair way, whatever they consider fair?
Oh, sure. That happens quite a lot of the time.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, to everyone on the call, I don't see anything in the chat. Maybe you're more verbose than most. Are there any questions that you'd like to throw out here for Joan and for everyone else that's here that maybe isn't comfortable asking a question?
Oh, could I mention one thing?
You can, please.
And that is that really the whole purpose of preparation is that you are going, whether you think about it or not, you're going to have a team of people who are going to help you through not only the divorce, but the rest of your life. What I mean by that is, you're going to have a financial advisor after divorce. You're going to need to go to an estate attorney to get wills and advance medical directives, powers of attorney. There are so many people. This is prep for those people. So you prep one time, and then you go and because all you just want to be able to hand over all your information, and that is the whole purpose, is that anybody can use the information that you are going to prepare.
Well, that's really helpful. And gosh, I don't know what else I have up on if I can find it. I'm looking to see, I wanted to share Joan's website, and I must be on on another website here because I wanted to show it, but I don't see it as an option to share her site. But as you can see, this is the URL, financialdivorceexpert.com. I'll stop sharing the screen here and leave it here on speaker view. But I'm really happy, Joan, that you were able to share your time with us today. Because your contact information is available, maybe people feel like they can just ask you questions directly. And so that works just as well. I've known you now for a few years, and so I'm so thankful that we're close. And this is very much how I work with other professionals. I just don't know everything and I'm happy to admit that. And I know you feel the same about other experts
Amen.
that you interact with.
I don't want to do what you do. I don't want to do what the attorney does, what the CPA does. I'm trained in mediation, but I don't do mediation. This is it, because it's, yeah. So I'm happy to, like, Bill Burnett is on the call. He is one of my go-to mortgage people. He's fabulous.
There you go, Bill.
And yeah, there's no way I do what he does. One of my assistants who actually is going to take the CDFA training course, Kelly, she's on the call. Anyway, I always prefer to, I don't operate outside of my area of expertise.
That's terrific. And we try not to as well at the Jason Howell Company. Of course, we support families. That's really our business. We have just a handful of institutions that we work with, but most of what we do is working with couples who have a couple of kids who are trying to manage financial life along with regular life, and we are a resource to them. And sometimes it's even to if there's an uncoupling, there's a resource there. But sometimes maybe having a conversation with you. Have you ever had a time? I mean, I'm sure maybe once or twice at least over 20 years, where a couple came to you and then they realized, you know what, we're okay.
Oh yeah, and I love it. I
Yeah.
mean, if people can work it out, that's fantastic. I also have people that are sort of thinking about it, and one has not, is just really fearful because he or she has very limited experience working with the finances, and this is making them fearful, that they want to be better informed, and that happens. I do have some people that want to be separated, but they don't want to be divorced, but they need to know, what does that incur? What can what about support? What about dividing assets and whatever? So, yes, if people decide that they want to remain married, that's wonderful.
And we got a couple of questions here towards the end, so I'll just read them off. The first one here is, for the child support calculation, do you estimate the child's medical cost? Is it a medical premiums plus average of out-of-pocket costs?
No. Child support, there is a basic calculation. And what I mean basic, it is food, clothing, housing. It's very, very basic. You do include in the child support calculation a couple of things, and it's based on the gross monthly income of both parents, not the net, unless you have your own business. Okay. But you also add in the differential cost to cover the child or children by themselves for medical. What I mean is, if your choices are employee and employee family, then you take that differential between the employee and the employee family, and that's what it takes to cover the child or children. Also, work-related childcare costs for either party, that is calculated into the child support number. For other things, and now we're getting into what they call deviations. Actually, there are like 9 clauses that you
Just
need
nine.
to nine clauses that you need to address in the agreement. Besides, just the custody, is how are you going to divide the costs for real life stuff like soccer and summer camps and things like that. You've got to maintain life insurance in case one of the parents dies. You've got to, the needs of the children keep going. So the co-pays, unless they are out of the ordinary, which you could include that in the calculation if they're out of the ordinary. I've had several clients that they had children that were autistic and would never be independent. And you have karate, and you have medical costs, and you have transportation to special schools and things. Those are deviations, and you can include those in child support.
Oh, that's great. Another question I had, which is a very current type of question, essentially, is, can you address the possible implications of COVID-19 for those who are starting the process?
Loudoun County Court opened Monday. And as far as the COVID-19, wow, we have issues. We have, for people that are employed and have been laid off, they're trying to get unemployment. Perhaps they were lucky and their employer applied for the payroll protection program, and they are continuing to be paid. So you've got a myriad of issues as far as healthcare is concerned, as far as income is concerned. So those are just 2 of the issues that they're impacting divorce right now.
So Loudoun County is open. I think Fairfax County, is Fairfax County open?
I believe that they open too. Yes,
Okay.
and perhaps Alexandria. I do know that of Northern Virginia. Now Maryland is operating on the same thing. The counties are opening independently, so you really have to check. But keep in mind something, that it's very rare that people are going to get inside a courtroom. Okay.
Yeah.
Even if you have a court date, almost everybody settles before the court date.
Sure.
So you don't have to stop um, any process any of the functions in the divorce process just because of the courts. But again, it's if you've been making $90,000 a year and all of a sudden you're laid off and you don't know what your income is going to be, that's tough, and that's going to impact child support if you have minor children.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, this has been fantastic. One thing that hasn't come up that I want to make sure comes up. It was in the bio that was sent out with the newsletter for this, and people wouldn't necessarily expect it. But you've served as an expert witness, Prince William County, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, even in Maryland. Is that right?
Correct.
And what are you typically expert witnessing when you do that?
Income, need for spousal support. Hardly ever is my calculations like pension valuations or separate property. As I mentioned, in quite a few states, if you had a 401k before marriage or a house before marriage, or money and you put it into a house, then in many states, the gains and losses on that separate amount you had from before the marriage, that is separate also and doesn't go into the marital pot to be divided. So I do quite a bit of tracing and things like that. Also, valuations on stock options, restricted stock units, things like that. So a lot of it is the everyday things like need for spousal support, cash flow, at different levels of spousal support.
Joan Coullahan, everyone, financial divorce expert, financialdivorceexpert.com. She's like a financial planner and a divorce attorney mixed into one without the legal stuff and without the, managing your finances stuff. She'll help you interpret really both sides, it sounds like. Joan, thank you so much for being with us today. You're very welcome. Any final thoughts on what someone should think about if they are or have a friend who is approaching this process?
Be educated, be smart, find resources on the internet. Also, I will say this is a plug. I'm in the collaborative group, and we are the collaborative professionals in Northern Virginia, but there's also Maryland, DC, and whatever. And we actually offer a class called Divorce Options. The meetup group is Divorce Options of Northern Virginia. And there are presentations. We're doing seminars. It's like $15 to register. And you have an attorney, a financial neutral, myself, and mental health parenting. And so that's fabulous. And if you want to email me, I'll email you the link. But yeah, just really start preparing, get educated. That's going to help two ways. Number one, it's going to save you a lot of money and time and frustration. But number two, anxiety. It'll help relieve your anxiety.
And that's for collaborative divorces. That's where that group is for.
Right.
We've heard of that.
But it explains the 4 ways to divorce.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we support families. We're happy for families.
Yay! Yes.
But when crisis happens, we've got people like Joan to walk us through, save us some money, save us some time, save us some anxiety. With that, I will thank all of you for being a part of this today. Especially thanks to Joan, but thank you to those who asked questions. Thank you to those who just listened. I'm sure, Joan, people will be reaching out to you in the near future. And I wish all of us a wonderfully boring evening at home because we're all
Yay.
supposed to be home.
It's
Still
hump
trying to
day.
get the curve. What's that?
It's hump day.
It's hump day. Thank you for letting us know. Sometimes I think we all forget.
Yes.
But now we know where we are. Well, Joan, I'll reach out to you over the phone and thank you personally. And we're getting a bunch of thanks here in the chat. So just know that people appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Stay well.